Welcome back to the part of this F1 25 My Team Career Mode. This is part number 41 today for the Belgian Grand Prix in Season 3, coming off the back of a reverse Silverstone race in the rain, I might add, and Ferrari winning for the first time since the opening round of this season, and unfortunately, it was an episode to forget for ourselves, driving as Ollie Bearman, the one-off special livery and a special helmet for Bearman's home race turned into an absolute curse and calamity. It was 0 points. It was probably going to be that way even before we made some major gamble to try and go for the dry tyres and a puncture later. Yeah, it's a race to forget, but we now reset and try and go again. And with 2 chances to make things up today around Spa with the sprint race first and then the full Grand Prix, but still leading both championships as it stands.
This is the time to negotiate with some sponsors. Obviously, revenue is key to our chances in F1, so we need to cut as many big ticket deals as possible. Now is the time to make it happen.
So away from the racing, we've also got some pressing matters about seeking sponsorship for next season. The title sponsor choice is here, and it's going to be between Duotone and the 3 starting sponsors we actually had at the beginning of the game. So it seems like it's kind of a 2-season cycle where for 2 seasons you have sort of the same options, and then going to that 3rd season you maybe get a new sponsor that's entirely new, that's not been shown to you before, because it took us till season 3 to even get Duotone. So I guess it will be till, well, season 5 now until we get the chance to go for a completely brand new sponsor. I think the best deal here is Duotone, and we've only been with them for, you know, a season now, so we're going to continue with them. The logo's awesome. I think there's, you know, a lot you can do with their logo and also the lettering as well, so we're going to go with them, but it's also just, it seems like the best deal, to be honest.
Great news, boss. The sponsor we were after are pleased with our proposals and are happy to sign. I'll get all the relevant paperwork sorted. All that's left to say is, congratulations.
I mentioned best deal, not that it's going to matter that much because we just have too much money to even spend, to be honest, as it stands right now in the My Team career, as we do get finally a new training perk unlocked for the first time in a long while, and that is going to finally open up a slightly higher rate of hiring in the engineering department. I had to go through corporate and personnel similar owner perks to finally unlock the owner perk of a higher rate for the engineering hiring, which I'm still trying to get as high as we can, just for the sake of trying to see if we can actually do that mechanic in the game, because again, I don't really need it. You know, we're okay in terms of we're not even buying any R&D upgrades really, apart from the durability. Obviously there is probably going to hopefully be a reset at the end of this season, and that will be interesting to see, you know, how that shakes things up. But again, you don't spend R&D on that, so really, is it going to be that much of a difference there? Probably not, but I'm still trying to maximize everything we can with the owner perks. But we get a brand new secondary sponsor, Lupo Industries, which is a very nice final logo to unlock, the variant one. And you may have noticed at the very start of the episode, and here now, we are still in the stealth black camo livery. Not really camo, stealth. We are still in the stealth black variant of this livery. It was technically meant to be a one-off for the British Grand Prix, sort of not really a home Grand Prix livery, more of a duotone special livery where their logo is more prominent on the front wing, on the side pod, and then everything else has gone from white to black, kind of giving off the 2020 Mercedes vibe. Well, obviously it was let's be real, a horrendous disaster of a race for ourselves personally in that race, but it was also very difficult for Tramnit. You know, Silverstone was always going to be a difficult one. It just seems to be a really tough place to go to with the My Team car on this year's game. Added in with the rain, AI having advantage, it was just never going to go well. But I felt so bad that this livery didn't really get the race result, or sort of, you know, at least a bit of enjoyment in the race that it deserved. So kind of almost like in real life sometimes, where these teams, just for the sake of, you know, ease of shipping and the cost cap, they sometimes stick with the livery for 2-3 races. McLaren have done that before, where they've done a special Monaco livery, and just because the next race is immediately the week after for logistics, they just keep the livery for the Spanish Grand Prix. We're going to do that here. We're going to go from Silverstone to Belgium, and we're going to maintain the stealth livery. Also because so many of you guys, surprisingly, were like, saying you absolutely loved the stealth livery. So I thought we'd keep it on for one more episode before returning to the usual main livery. And then we might hopefully do at least one more special livery at some point before Season 3 is out. But I'm just going through the decal editor and swapping some of the logos through. So we're getting Lupo Industries on the side of the car. We also did it elsewhere around the car, because the more places you have the logos, I think the quicker you earn the variants, essentially. But yeah, it's nice to be back with the stealth livery. I honestly might take some inspiration from like the front wing being all black, or like the main wings being black, and you can see the duotone in bold. I may actually carry that over back into the normal livery, because the front wing where you can see the duotone logo very prominently, I actually really enjoyed at Silverstone, and it'll be a lot more apparent here in Belgium, unless it's raining, I was going to say, because Silverstone was very doom and gloom. So in a stealth way, the livery almost kind of, blended into all the darkness. But if it's all sunny around Spa, then this one's going to certainly stand out. But yeah, continuing on just for a little bit longer with one more episode in our villain arc. I will be in a villain arc after last episode. That was obviously quite a frustrating one to go through. But we, as ever, continue to just buy and buy and buy facility upgrades I'm trying my hardest, guys. I'm trying so hard to go below like 40 million, and it's just not happening. Like, we just cannot go lower than 40 million. It's the only way we're going to do that is by just making a massive driver signing, like, one of the drivers that's like a salary of like 37 million, and then even then that's over the course of a season, so you don't really get a massive whammy big hit of spending. So we're probably never at this point in the series going to go below 40, at least I would say comfortably, but we're actually over 60 there for a moment. So maybe we'll never go below 50 million, which, to be fair, I guess if you think about it in real terms, in a real business and organization, I guess you wouldn't want to go that low on your main balanced budget. But you know what I mean in terms of the game, and like, cutting a little bit fine and actually having a little bit of risk in what we're spending. There is no risk so far, and as it stands for the performance comparison, it seems like everything's quite similar to the British Grand Prix. Maybe Mercedes with a slight tiny upgrade I can see, and then Red Bull also with another small upgrade to maybe just match Ferrari completely on paper now in the R&D chart. But apart from that, it has been quite similar since the Austrian Grand Prix, and I haven't really talked about it, but Audi unfortunately not making many upgrades. BMW have, though. BMW have bridged the gap to the midfield nearly, which is pretty damn great for them, so kudos.
Okay, boss. Got an interesting bit of news for you. We've had a driver reach out to us to ask if we'd be interested in a preliminary chat with them about possibilities for next season. You can always say no if you're not interested, or we can see where it goes. Your call.
So, how about this? This is a bit of a surprise. Didn't really expect this to pop up, to be honest, but it is that time of the season, I guess, with the contract windows opening up. We've been approached by Yuki Tsunoda, of all people, driving for Williams. Now, obviously, this team, aarava Racing, we've had some, historical rivalry with Williams in the past, in Season 1 and Season 2. Now we're on to bigger and better things in a rivalry with Ferrari these days. But this is quite big. One of our former rivals, their top driver, actively wants away from them and wants to join us. And Tsunoda's actually 87 rated. So he's actually very, very highly rated at a pretty good price point, I guess, compared to the drivers ahead of him. He's more expensive than Antonelli, who's the same rating as him. So there are some pros and cons to Tsunoda, but it's an interesting, different driver that's approached us, because so far we've had Season 1, I think Ocon. Season 2, we've had Pierre Gasly, and now Tsunoda. I'm kind of waiting for the day where we get like one of the big names approaching us randomly on their own accord. I guess that's kind of more of a rare moment. You probably have to be quite high fan rating, but in terms of Tsunoda's desires, I think we meet every single one of his expectations. It's a 17 million annual salary, so it's really not that bad when you look at how much money we've got. So Tsunoda, is he a potential potential target. We've spoken about still maybe keeping an eye on Antonelli, but we've also recently, in the Canadian Grand Prix episode, following Leclerc's engine failure and his frustrating season as the reigning champion at McLaren, nowhere near race wins, we've spoken about, do we need to go and save Leclerc from demise? You know, he's won a championship in this season, for goodness sake, and yet now he's floundering in a McLaren team that's, well, put him alongside Lance Stroll. So, you know, very good reason to want out. So, you know, we've got a couple of now, 3 drivers at least, and maybe more to consider, you know, about signing, you know, a few other names that we pop up that we might want to pursue. And obviously, as you guys have enjoyed in the past, I'm not going to completely unveil who I'm really going for. But you're going to have to see how that one pans out towards the end of the season or into the next one. For now, I'm very happy with this lineup, and we're actually moving on to driving now as our German rocket ship, the man leading the Drivers' Championship, Tim Tramnitz. Obviously, it was a difficult race last episode, so let's try and get back into his feet and try and, you know, bounce back a little bit and gain some points back in the standings.
Welcome to the behemoth that they value so highly. This is Spa. It's high speed. It is really challenging. We have elevation, we have dramatic corners, and we have one driver in a few moments' time who will take pole position.
So, being a sprint weekend, first things first, we have sprint qualifying to set ourselves up for the shortened race. And as ever in the sprint weekends, as we go to short qualifying, it means this one is very intense because it really is just basically one lap, because you do have time to go again, but especially around Spa, you don't really have the tyres for it, as you would have to do a whole lap around and then again. And Spa has been a very abrasive circuit on this year's game, especially with some very high tyre wear levels we've seen in previous seasons as we go through with a purple middle sector, which looked pretty promising. Only enough for P4 though, despite the purple middle, I guess losing too much time in the first and the last sector, and we will finish in P4 below the 2 Red Bulls. But it's Albon, of all people, you know, he's quietly kind of just been there. He's not really impressed that much. I mean, him and Ferrari, they haven't been insane since like Bahrain, I would say, but quietly Albon is the nearest challenger to Tramnit. He just got his 2nd win of the season, and maybe his focus is back. He's on pole position, sprint pole position. I thought we were going to see a Red Bull win last time out. Maybe this will be the place where they will finally get that elusive win this season, because they're on par as the best team on paper. Ollie Behrman qualifying P9, so surprisingly, you know, being the higher rated driver of the two as an AI, Behrman lacking a bit of pace and focus there. Obviously, we've had 2 pretty chaotic races with him, so maybe that's also a reason as we step into then 8 laps around Spa-Francorchamps for this sprint race here. Lights out, and we're underway. Albon from P1. Piastri, though, with a good getaway. Verstappen, not so much, as we try and challenge him a little bit. We look behind as there was a little bit of contact from Carlos Sainz, I think it was, who tried to come through on the left-hand side. We had to kind of, you know, just time that right to get it through in the middle, so to speak, in a way, because Sainz, I think, had his front wing alongside my rear left tyre. We have Verstappen on the inside, and meanwhile ahead of us, Piastri, well, he was momentarily into the lead of this sprint, but Albon comes back at him, the 2 of them fighting for position. The end of the Kemmel Straight, we tried to get involved ourselves, but we were quite cautious under braking, not wanting to stick a nose in there. That corner, you know, really catches you out if you're not careful on the inside. Instead, lap 2, we've waited patiently for the right time now with DRS aided to get past Oscar Piastri, and Behrman making moves behind as he gets up to 7th place. It's a double overtake, is that, on Leclerc and Ocon. Leclerc comes back at him, but no, Behrman, fantastic overtake. So I was maybe, you know, a little bit downbeat about his qualifying performance, P9, but clearly that's not really where he should have been on pace, because that was a fantastic double pass down the Kemmel Straight to get into 7th. Better the rest effectively, really, with Ocon down there, I guess, you know, maybe not performing as well as his teammate Albon. That's been the case for this entire season so far. Albon's been the lead Ferrari of their 2 new drivers for this season, but now we're applying the pressure. Fastest lap in a sprint kind of, context. Maybe we've still got some pace to show, as it's all about just flat out pushing, whereas over a longer race distance, clearly the race pace isn't there on heavier fuel in the last few episodes, as we've gone from the right to the left, pulled out to the racing line and made the move for first place. So we're leading a race now. I didn't think I was going to be saying that after recent performances, but so far so good. And actually we've pulled away from Albon because he's been busy, well, one, losing the back end like that, and also worrying about Max Verstappen. So like in the early part of this season, this is familiar territory where we've broken DRS and we're controlling the race from here. And thankfully for me, Verstappen is going to come attack Albon. He nearly gets squeezed to the grass on the left. Verstappen has to go from one side to the other side of the track to make the overtake, and those two lose a little bit of time to myself as there's swapping going on for the two Mercedes. Norris now ahead of Carlos Sainz, and Lance Stroll has just got ahead of Leclerc. We really do need to save Leclerc, it seems like. What's going on? Lance Stroll's overtaken him. Goodness me, the reigning champion really not enjoying things, is he? As on lap 5, these guys now are just swapping positions so much that we're now 2 seconds ahead in first place, as Sainz and Norris continue to squabble for the the trophy of #1 Mercedes car here today. Obviously Norris though has the 2 wins under his belt, clearly has become the team leader in the silver hour, as Verstappen is clearly still the quicker of the 2 Red Bulls. Piastri very much in no man's land, as Verstappen again swaps position for second place. But as we get on towards lap 8, the tyre wear has been kicking in. You may remember I did set a fast lap of the Grand Prix, and I maybe, in hindsight, I'll admit, I maybe overdid the pushing early on in this sprint race, because now the tyres are really cooked. And Verstappen, well, he's right there. I've had to block him on the run to Rouge. It was rapid, the amount of time Verstappen's gained in just the last 2 laps, and now he's going for the overtake. And I'm not defending too much with ERS, because I'm trying to look for the repass maybe on Albon, and then hoping to use all of this battery to come back at Verstappen in the last sector, because there's no DRS in the last sector, so you just need battery to gain and gain and gain. And here we are then, down to 5% battery. We've nearly done it. We go through on the outside to the inside, the final corner, bit of contact made with Verstappen. Look how worn the tyres are, and that means we just can't get the power down. And Verstappen narrowly wins his first ever race of any sort this season. It's the sprint race win. We get second place. It could have been the sprint win. I thought we timed that quite well. We nearly got him. The game plan of keeping battery for the end of the lap, it did work. We just missed out by a little bit of a fraction there. So, it was very, very fine margins, but that was a lot better compared to the last 2 episodes in terms of out-and-out pace. But it was a sprint race, so it's a little bit different. And clearly, I overdid the pushing, and it bit me back in the arse at the end of the race. So that's maybe something to consider into the full Grand Prix. Clearly, tyre wear is going to be a major factor around here in Spa, as we now go into qualifying proper for the Grand Prix itself. So now we have actually 2 runs, 2 sets of tyres we can go through here. So let's see if we can improve on that P4. At the same time, maybe others will improve as we come through for our first flying lap. And it's only P6. We're below the 2 Williams cars, for goodness sake. And we're actually down to P14. So that was really not a great first flying lap. And on the second flyer, I thought I went really wide into turn 1. We actually gained time on the wider line in turn 1, as we're up to nearly 0.4 of a second. Clearly a lot of track evolution happening as well, as we're just gaining time everywhere, really, it seems. So the track evolution is crazy, but also maybe just that first lap was really not as great as I felt it was. And also maybe others, the AI, you can make setup changes. So maybe the AI teams around us have found more time in the setups. As Behrman is only P12, we catapult ourselves up from 14, over 2 seconds gained to go to P7, but it's lower than what we did in the sprint quali. So clearly others finding more pace, Leclerc finding more pace, and Red Bull finding more pace. It's a front row lockout for Red Bull. Leclerc with a really great third place, then the Mercedes. Albon, he'll be disappointed from sprint pole to P6. For us, it's a good P7. It's good in the context of clearly other teams found a bit more pace because Behrman down in P13. So maybe we've got a bit more of a difficult full Grand Prix on our hands coming up. Let's go to the grid.
The Belgian Grand Prix, a race the great Ayrton Senna won 6 times, and in 2019, Charles Leclerc became the first driver to take their maiden win here since a certain Michael Schumacher in 1992. One of the circuits that makes Formula One, Formula One. Welcome to the Belgian Grand Prix. Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. World champion Max Verstappen starts from pole position, and Oscar Piastri completes the front row. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Leclerc, Norris, Carlos Sainz, and Tramnitz, Ocon, Stroll, Tsunoda, Paul Aaron, Colapinto, Behrman, Andrea Kimi, Antonelli, Pepe Marti, Lawson, Albon, Isaac Hadjar, and Jack Doohan, Bortoletto, Hulkenberg, Maloney, and Pierre Gasly picks up the final grid slot today. That's it then, it's time to go racing as we head down trackside for today's race. Welcome to the commentary box. I'm Alex Jakes, delighted to say joining us for this intriguing race is Anthony Davidson. Well, they might be the new kids on the block, but they are getting stuck in to the big boys. They're not making many friends along the way, though.
Well, that's a good thing, though. You know what? If you're a member of that team, the new 11th team, take it as a backhanded compliment. It means you're doing very well, too well, and the other teams don't like it.
So Alex Jakes and Anthony Davidson speaking about the teams around us, maybe not liking how well we've been doing, and certainly it feels like this is now their period of time of revenge on us this season to try and claw it back. But with a new team on the block, we're desperate to try and etch ourselves into Formula One history and get that elusive first championship for our team in the constructors, and also to see one of our drivers lifting the driver's title. We're driving as the man leading the way. It was a good sprint race. Maybe a little bit, at the end, lacking a bit of tyre wear pace overall, which could be a bigger factor in this Grand Prix today. So I'm really not too sure. I'm cautiously optimistic, but I think the tyre wear could be a big factor that could undo us. Let's see as we go to 5 red lights for the Belgian Grand Prix. Lights out, and we're underway from an all Red Bull front row. It's a slow start, though, for Piastri. Norris looking about, nearly squeezes us off as we dip a tyre into the grass, wanting to go round the outside of Lando Norris. He was very slow into turn 1, kind of get boxed in by Piastri and Leclerc. Speaking of Piastri and Leclerc, side by side, we're side by side with Lando Norris. We make the overtake on the Mercedes. We're up into P4 now. It's actually been an electric start as we now get the tow from Piastri. Leclerc was very slow, harvesting energy as it's 3 wide as Lando Norris comes round the outside of everyone. He's gone for the 4-car overtake, is that, or 3-car overtake? He is on the softs, to be fair, so he's the only man on softs in this top 5, so it makes sense, and he's actually going to get that move done and get up into second place. So Lando very much impressing in his Mercedes on softs with 3 overtakes there to get up into second place. Verstappen, 2 seconds the gap is, and we're only on to the second lap, so off the back of the sprint win is his AI now really highly focused. Is he going to be locked in for this race now? Let's see. Can we come back at Lando Norris, or is Piastri actually going to have other ideas? Is this the start of a really good period for Red Bull? Maybe they've yet to win a race. They just want a sprint. Can they go for the Grand Prix win? Can they go for 2 cars on the podium as Piastri gets up into third place? We defend Carlos Sainz, but we didn't put up too much of an insane fight versus Piastri, just because I think we can stick with him and come back at him. Spa, it is one of those racetracks, I feel, where you can be patient, have an ebb and flow of, okay, you pass me, I'll just come back at you at the next lap, basically. But if you get swarmed by 2 cars, then it's a bit more tricky. So we put up more of a fight versus Sainz, because then it sets ourselves up for this overtake. And speaking of, Behrman, again, making another great move up Radion onto the Kemmel straight, and we follow suit as we make our own move on Piastri to get back into 3rd place. And that's what I mean. On the very next lap, we re-overtake him. And now you're starting to see, I think, a little bit Lando Norris already struggling on those softs. You know, the gap is 3 seconds now to Verstappen. So he's maybe looking to dominate the, things, as Albon, I think he had a grid penalty, that is, because he's down in P13. So Albono, the nearest man to Travnitz and ourselves in the championship, he's out the points right now. A lot of traffic. That's kind of, you know, that's really big news for us in the standings as we now look to pass Lando after an electric lap 1. His softs are really not coping already, and so this probably suggests that he's on a 2-stop. He's got to be. I thought that anyway, but he's definitely got to be on a 2-stop of maybe using all 3 compounds, soft, medium, and hard. And you know what? I think we're on a 2-stop. I think a lot of us are on a 2-stop, because I think, you know, the strategy screen at the start of the race, it did show 1 as the default, and I think it's just the way we have to go. The tyre wear seems far too high. We know these mediums will only go about 8 laps, and then they're really worn out from the sprint race, as we now pull through with DRS making the move on the Brits to get up into 2nd place. Acres of clean air ahead of us, but the gap is now 3.5 seconds to Verstappen, 4.5 seconds on lap 6. Jesus. Max is pushing like the clappers, and he is waving goodbye to everyone in this race as Lando is in on lap 6. Behrman is in, because actually Behrman also started on the soft compound of tyre. So the softs only go 6 laps. I've come in on lap 7 off the mediums, because look at my tyre wear icon. Because of the heavier fuel loads, the medium tyre actually wore out even quicker than it did in the sprint race, despite me maybe not pushing as hard. So we've come in and we're absolutely on a 2-stop here. We're going to the hard tyre though. We start on a medium, so a little bit of a different strategy to Lando and Behrman. They've gone soft to medium. We're going medium to hard, and we're going to end on the soft tyre. I just thought it made more sense to end on the soft tyre. Lowest fuel possible means that it won't maybe be as much of a burden on those tyres in terms of the out-and-out tyre wear, as we come out just ahead of the Williams of Aaron, who is going to close up to us at DRS, and I'm not going to try and waste battery trying to defend him here, so we kind of almost let him by in a way, just knowing that we'll have the better pace through the corners, and also just wanting to save as much ERS to push later on, really, to catch up to Stroll, and then more so after Stroll, push away and use this new set of hard tyres as we get back down the inside of the Williams pretty easily. And now setting our sights on Lance Stroll in the McLaren, who, by the way, is having a fantastic race weekend, to be fair. I think did he not beat Leclerc in the sprint, and now he's ahead of Leclerc in this race so far. I don't know if Leclerc's pit already or not. I don't know. Either way, Stroll a bit slow in the McLaren, and that just has not looked that great all season long, and we get around the outside very easily for P5, and by lap 9 we've been sending purple middle sectors. Norris ultimately the quickest man on track behind, but we're catching up to Albon, who is yet to pit in this race. Same for Ocon, same for the Red Bull. So I think Red Bull and Ferrari, their 2 teams, think they've got enough tyre wear to make a 1-stop work. But the rest of us, you know, ourselves at AAR, Mercedes, McLaren, they're all on 2-stop. So for the first time in a while, a big, stark difference between certain top teams of how they're going with strategy, as Ocon is now coming in, Verstappen is now coming in. So they've taken their mediums to lap 11. They've got to be going for a 1-stop, you know, hard to the end, whereas I'm definitely going to be pitting again, probably around lap 17, I think, you know, giving ourselves 5 laps, which doesn't seem like a lot, but basing off the tyre where Lando had, I think 5 laps on soft seems appropriate. As lap 12, we're leading the way now. We're leading this Grand Prix, but the gap is only 5.8 seconds to Verstappen, and obviously we've got to make another pit stop. He does not, as it's the 2 Mercedes swapping positions. Behrman's P5, but remember, Behrman and the 2 Mercs, they're also on 2 stops, so that's why they're all ahead of Piastri, Ocon, fighting each other right now. Albon, in the top 10. So Albon maybe recovering a little bit in terms of, he was out the points initially at the start of this race. Leclerc's also maybe recovered of sorts. He's P6. I think he's also on a 2-stop, though, to be fair. So myself, Norris, Sainz, Behrman, Leclerc, all will be going, below once we make that second stop. And speaking of that second stop, lap 16 this is now. So about 3 laps later, we're now going to come in. And we're coming in now, lap 16, because Verstappen's closed up to us, and we just held him up a little bit there, just trying to, we're in no rush to make that right-hander corner, but Verstappen ultimately does take the lead of the Grand Prix, and he closed up to us pretty rapidly there. In only a handful of laps, he closed the gap. So, hands up, Verstappen. I don't know what he's been eating today, but he's on a different planet in that Red Bull Ford, and he kind of deserves to go on for the Grand Prix win, I think, from this point onwards. But we're in now for that second stop onto soft tyres. We're going to come out ahead of Albon, but behind Piastri and Ocon. But this is pretty good. Making that second stop, and we're currently at P4, I think we can aim for second place. If we can get second place on a 2-stop with an extra pit stop, I think that's really good, job well done. We've beaten everyone bar Verstappen, and clearly Verstappen is on another level today. So, best of the rest, P2 on a 2-stop. I think we could be very, very happy with ourselves, to be honest, especially considering the last 2 races for the team, as Piastri and Ocon swap positions ahead of us. Albon, bless him, he tried to fight us a little bit, but no use. We are going to push away from him, and he's not going to be able to do much. Is Behrman behind, again, going for a move and showing a little bit of fight, despite a really difficult British Grand Prix. Behrman's AI coming back with a little bit of aggression there to get up into P7 and splitting the 2 Mercedes as we close up to Esteban Ocon on towards lap 20. So we've only got 3 laps to go in this one. It's a little bit closer than I would have thought. At this point, I honestly thought we would have been right on the back of Piastri, but we're only going for the move on Ocon yet, so don't count second place as a guarantee. This actually might be a bit closer than I thought. Maybe the Red Bull just really is that great on its tyres, as it's a 1-2 for Red Bull right now. We're going to make it the 3rd and last place on the podium as we overtake Ocon, and now we set our sights on Oscar Piastri. Can we ruin the 1-2, or is this going to show Red Bull Ford now how finally fully arrived in the season? They've taken the sprint win. Verstappen absolutely locked in for the Grand Prix win, but can we ruin the party in these last 2 laps and break the 1-2? We're just under 1 second now. Yellow flag. Oh, big engine failure. Big puff of smoke right into our cockpit, into our faces, as Oscar Piastri suffers an engine failure on the second last lap. And to be honest, his teammate, he's going to be debriefing. He's going to go, first time? Yeah, not my first time, pal. As Verstappen has had that twice this season. He's had 2 engine failures. He's had a very, very tough one. So after all of the pain of this season so far, he honestly deserves this. He's been in a class of his own today. Max Verstappen, the 5-time world champion, comes across the line and is going to win the Belgian Grand Prix by an absolute country mile. But we've done really well. We were the only 2-stopper that made it onto the podium, and we've jumped ahead of a pretty decently quick Ferrari, and just being second place, maximising everything again. I think that that was a really good Grand Prix for us. That's honestly the best we could have hoped for, because there was no beating Verstappen today. Really wasn't.
You've heard this one before. Max Verstappen takes the victory.
They led from lights out to the flag at the end, and their race victory was never in doubt, was it? Brilliant stuff by them.
And overall, you can see with the points tally of the sprint and the full Grand Prix, we outscored Albon. So for Tim Tramnitz's sake, we've gained points in the championship standings for him versus second place. Verstappen is now only a couple of points behind Behrman. So Verstappen could overtake Behrman in the Drivers' Championship, would kind of mark, definitely the point of which, okay, others now have cars to actually compete quite well, but also just showing how good of a job Tramnitz has done this season. We're still 43 points ahead of Ferrari in the Constructors, but Red Bull have now broken the 200-point mark. I get the feeling that Red Bull and Ferrari, they're going to be trying their hardest to try and close up, and it just takes a couple of 1-2s like Red Bull nearly got if it wasn't for engine failures. But speaking of our rivals, we actually won our rivalry. We only got into this rivalry 2 episodes ago, and we've won it. That's quite insane. I didn't think you could win a rivalry that quickly, so that's a positive note to end this episode on. Guys, if you haven't enjoyed it, hit the like button, let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.